Here's Sophie Cunningham, the badass for the Indiana Fever, who is willing to fight. She was also a kicker in high school. Okay.
Oh, wow.
She's the youngest black belt in the state of Missouri's history, 6 years old.
Sophie Cunningham was a black belt at the age of 6.
Yeah.
Yep.
Boom.
Wow.
Caitlin Clark taking exception to that, and then Marina Mabry of the Connecticut Sun coming over and pushing her from behind.
Nobody saw this coming. 1 minute, it was just another intense game. The next, Sophie Cunningham made the entire league stop and stare. And then, Pat McAfee dropped the bomb. Not just a shout-out, not just praise. He exposed the real reason Sophie Cunningham was brought to Indiana.
She was also a kicker in high school. Okay.
Oh, wow.
For the brand. Obviously, the kicker is the biggest badass on the court. I love everything about it. Sophie, welcome to Indianapolis. Here's Sophie Cunningham, the badass for the Indiana Fever, who is willing to fight.
Sure.
Which we are big fans of for Caitlin Clark. Love that she was a kicker. That's a big ball, too. Hey, that's a good thump. Wow. That's a good kick right there. Obviously, she chose basketball, became a professional. But I love that she stepped foot on the field. The amount of courage it takes. She was a black belt in 6th grade or something.
Yeah.
Wow.
And what he revealed about her changed everything. The black belt, the enforcer, the woman behind Caitlin Clark's protection. And after what went down in that fiery clash on the court, there's no turning back.
They brought Sophie Cunningham over in a trade for a reason. She's the youngest black belt in the state of Missouri's history, 6 years old. They brought her over to protect Caitlin Clark because they saw this puppy coming.
This isn't just basketball anymore. It's war, and Sophie's not backing down. It all started with chaos. Caitlin Clark had already been roughed up, scratched across the face by J.C. Sheldon.
J.C. Sheldon had the task of stopping the latest superstar in her basketball league. And this thing was chatty in the second quarter.
And slammed hard to the ground by Marina Mabry in what many called a non-basketball play.
Taking down J.C. Sheldon on a layup attempt in the fourth quarter after we saw J.C. Sheldon claw Caitlin Clark in the eyes. Caitlin Clark taking exception to that, and then Marina Mabry of the Connecticut Sun coming over and pushing her from behind.
The refs barely reacted. The league stayed silent. But the moment that changed everything, it came when Sophie Cunningham made it crystal clear. Caitlin Clark would no longer be a punching bag.
Sophie Cunningham was a black belt at the age of 6.
Yeah.
Yep.
Boom.
Wow.
J.C. Sheldon, that's cute. You want to poke her in the eye, then push her into a boom Mabry thing? Go ahead. I'll take a take foul, and you'll eat the deck a little bit here. And then we'll get out. I love it. I know people aren't going to like this.
Sophie didn't hesitate. She saw Sheldon charge at Clark again and immediately stepped in, wrapping her up and dropping her to the floor. The crowd erupted. The benches stirred. But Sophie wasn't reckless. She was intentional. She didn't throw a punch. She sent a message. You touch Caitlin, you deal with me.
And Sophie Cunningham stepped up and did what somebody needed to do. A little bit of rough justice for the Connecticut Sun. And they deserved it. Connecticut Sun coach Rashid Mezian didn't like it one bit.
And just as the media rushed to label Sophie as dirty, Pat McAfee went live and flipped the script. He didn't just defend her, he revealed the truth. According to McAfee, Sophie wasn't just reacting emotionally, she was built for this.
And in last year, I think something we noticed, and I think a lot of people noticed, is when Caitlin would get bullied, nobody would do nothing.
That's right.
Nobody would do nothing. It was like, hey, they didn't know, like, whoa, I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe people are doing this to Caitlin Clark. Teammates weren't jumping in there. They bring in Sophie Cunningham. I had no idea. Sophie Cunningham was a black belt at the age of 6.
Yeah.
Yep.
Boom.
Wow.
J.C. Sheldon, that's cute. You want to poke her in the eye, then push her into a boom Mabry thing? Go ahead. I'll take a take foul, and you'll eat the deck a little bit here. And then we'll get out. I love it. I know people aren't going to like this.
A black belt since the age of 6. A fearless, disciplined presence on the court who was brought to the Fever for one reason, to protect the face of the league. McAfee called her the perfect enforcer, comparing her to legends from other sports. Players who don't need 30 points to dominate, just the will to set the tone.
She's playing a very key role for this Fever team. And Sophie can get buckets too, so it's not like, hey, we're just here to fight. I appreciate that is the case. And what are your thoughts, I don't think we've asked you this, about the WNBA as a whole, the moment they're having right now, and Caitlin, and kind of this new era, seemingly, of women's basketball.
And that's exactly what Sophie did. She didn't let her star player get pushed around. She held her ground, got in faces, and took the hit, both on the court and in the headlines. Because while the league was handing out fines and texts, McAfee was highlighting what everyone else ignored.
They brought Sophie Cunningham over in a trade for a reason. She's the youngest black belt in the state of Missouri's history, 6 years old. They brought her over to protect Caitlin Clark because they saw this puppy coming. So the Fever saw it coming. They went and got Sophie Cunningham, 6-year-old black belt. This is what the Bulls did with Charles Oakley to protect Michael Jordan. And I said this last year several times. The WNBA is not a vertical league.
Clark wasn't being defended. She was being targeted. And Sophie was the only one who responded. The fallout after Sophie Cunningham's bold move was immediate and brutal. Within minutes, she was ejected from the game. Hours later, the league slapped her with 2 separate fines. And then came the headlines. Some called her reckless, others dangerous.
There is now a petition to remove Sophie Cunningham from the WNBA. It has 114 signatures.
Somebody said sign the petition and remove Sophie Cunningham from the league. So this is a petition to get Sophie Cunningham removed from the WNBA. Where she displayed tonight was disgusting.
But as the media firestorm swirled, Pat McAfee jumped back on air and dropped the real story. He didn't just double down on his support, he exposed the deeper truth. Sophie Cunningham wasn't acting out of rage. She was executing a role. According to McAfee, this wasn't just a player stepping in on emotion. This was strategy.
She's playing a very key role for this Fever team.
Yes.
She's playing a very key role for this Caitlin Clark career, I think. We talked about you. We talked about JJ. You know, like I got a chance to see it up close and personal with James Johnson whenever I was here for the Knicks games and the Knicks and Pacers game. And it was like, that is a pivotal thing for stars. And Sophie can get buckets too. So it's not like, hey, we're just here to fight. I appreciate that is the case. And what are your thoughts? I don't think we've asked you this about the WNBA as a whole, the moment they're having right now, and Caitlin, and kind of this new era, seemingly, of women's basketball.
Sophie was handpicked, not just for her hustle or three-point shot, but for what McAfee called her non-negotiable toughness. And he had the receipts. A black belt in martial arts before she even hit middle school. A player with a defensive edge who's been physical her entire career. Not dirty, disciplined, trained.
Here's Sophie Cunningham, the badass for the Indiana Fever, who is willing to fight.
Sure.
Which we are big fans of for Caitlin Clark. She was also a kicker in high school. Okay.
Oh, wow.
For the brand. Obviously, the kicker is the biggest badass on the court. I love everything about it. Sophie, welcome to Indianapolis. Love that she was a kicker. That's a big ball, too. Hey, that's a good thump. Wow. That's a good kick right there. Obviously, she chose basketball, became a professional. But I love that she stepped foot on the field. The amount of courage it takes. She was a black belt in 6th grade or something like that.
Wow.
Sophie knew exactly what she was doing, stepping in to protect Caitlin Clark when the league refused to do it. McAfee highlighted what everyone was too scared to say. The WNBA had allowed Clark to be hit, shoved, and targeted game after game without consistent protection. The refs weren't calling it. The league wasn't stopping it.
There wasn't an explanation for the tech that she got. You know, I think it was pretty obvious that stuff was brewing, right? When the officials don't get control of the ball game, when they allow that stuff to happen, and it's been happening all season long.
And her teammates, until then, hadn't stepped up. But when Sheldon and Mabry took it too far, Sophie acted. And she didn't just stop the bullying, she exposed a flaw in the system.
J.C. Sheldon had the task of stopping the latest superstar in her basketball league. And this thing was chatty in the second quarter. It was chatty. They've got history. It was trash talking. And then in the third quarter, Sheldon poked her in the eye. Again, this is something we see all the time. They were on each other. They were talking. It was trashy. The superstar like MJ, unstoppable, poke her in the eye, and that's a flagrant foul, and it should have been a flagrant foul. And then Marina Mabry, this is inappropriate, came over, knocked her over. Many thought she should have been thrown out of the game. Well, she didn't get a technical. It's a little bad boys Pistons with MJ. For the record, Caitlin Clark got up.
As McAfee put it, she was the first one to say enough. And he wasn't alone. Clips of the incident went viral, not just because of the foul, but because of Sophie's composure afterward. Two Sun players got in her face, screaming, trying to escalate. But Sophie didn't retaliate.
Just stunningly bad behavior by Cheryl Reeve, tweeting at and about Caitlin Clark, kind of blaming her for not having her games on Minnesota Lynx on TV. But
like, Christy and Brennan actually brought that up. We forgot about that. The Cheryl Reeve literally was tweeting negative stuff about Caitlin Clark before the season started. She was the USA basketball coach. She was the USA basketball coach. And look.
She stood tall, hands up, stone-faced. No panic, no drama, just presence. That was what made her different. And yet, despite her poise and purpose, Sophie became the target. A lawsuit followed. Online petitions demanded her suspension.
Enough is enough, bruh. What is going on?
Sophie removed from the league.
Sophie Cunningham removed from the WNBA.
For Sophie Cunningham, hard fouls JC Sheldon. She gets ejected.
Sophie Cunningham steps up, grabs her, knocks her down, gets a flagrant 2 for this. They end up calling.
Yeah, slam her to the floor. Slam her through the floor. Y'all want to play dirty? Sophie gonna hold it down.
Sophie Cunningham gives a take foul, a very hard one. She straight up tackled JC Sheldon.
Headlines tried to twist the narrative into something ugly. But fans, they started seeing the bigger picture. They flooded social media with messages of support. The hashtag #, Protect Caitlin trended nationwide, and alongside it, a new one, #Sophie stands. Because it was no longer just about a foul, it was about who had the courage to stand up.
Her jersey is now out of stock, flying off the shelves. If you want a Sophie Cunningham jersey, you're going to have to wait for them to print more. She's number 8, by the way. You're not going to forget that going forward. Taking down JC Sheldon on a layup attempt in the fourth quarter after we saw JC Sheldon claw Caitlin Clark in the eyes.
McAfee wrapped it up perfectly. You don't need 25 points to lead a team. Sometimes all it takes is someone willing to get thrown out to say, "We're done being disrespected." That's Sophie. And in that moment, Sophie Cunningham wasn't just a player. She became the line in the sand.
Sophie Cunningham stood on business. So all these damn petitions and all these little stupid things they're trying to do, these little freaking fines, we don't care about none of that. What thing poked her right in the eye. Marina Marbury completely shoves Caitlin to the ground.
JC Sheldon scratched her in the eye. Like, she literally, you can see it here. She's just clawed her.
What is going on? WNBA, y'all need to get this under control. This is ridiculous.
After the smoke cleared and the headlines kept spinning, Sophie Cunningham didn't retreat. She responded. Calm, collected, director.
Sophie Cunningham had enough. Oh yeah. Sophie Cunningham had enough. Folks, shout out to Sophie Cunningham. We wanted somebody like this that said, "I'm tired of this. I'm trying to step up. It's time to step up."
She didn't make excuses, didn't dodge questions. She stood on what she did and made it clear. She'd do it again. Because in her words, if you don't protect your teammate, what are you even doing out there? That's when the narrative started to shift. Fans who initially questioned the foul started replaying the footage. They saw the eye poke, the hip check, the repeated targeting of Caitlin Clark with zero intervention from officials.
Marina Mabrey body checking Caitlin Clark to the ground. JC Sheldon all over her, riding her. Pokes Caitlin Clark in the eye.
And suddenly what looked like a reckless play now looked like necessary action. Sophie wasn't trying to hurt anyone. She was trying to end the cycle of silence. Pat McAfee amplified her message even louder. On his show, he said Sophie's response was exactly what the league needed.
Here's Sophie Cunningham, the badass for the Indiana Fever, who is willing to fight.
Sure.
Which we are big fans of for Caitlin Clark.
She wasn't out there throwing elbows for fun, he said. She did what leaders do. She took the hit so her teammate didn't have to anymore. And that's exactly how Caitlin responded on the court, with fire. Following Sophie's ejection, Clark lit it up. Deep threes, no-look assists. even a stare down to the opposing bench.
And if Caitlin's going to continue to pull up from the fucking logo,
she will,
and drop it with no hesitation. Last night, double team, step back, sideways.
Fuck it.
How you doing? Keep it moving. Then how about her to the bench afterwards with a?
Yeah, you like that?
Yeah, it was a. You like that, but that last one right here, this is a. Get to it. Get to it. Get to it. The punch is a. I'm the one. And
she punched somebody?
No, she punched herself. Oh, jeez. Oh, no.
Shoot.
She punches herself, and she basically says, like, yelling in the face, like, fuck with me, basically. It was awesome. As soon as I watched it, I was so excited. Let them know is my entire thoughts. Because they were trying to body her a bit.
Yeah, big time.
They were trying to body her a bit. And she just, in their face, answers, Sophie Cunningham coming in there, too.
The energy had changed. Sophie's stand didn't just shift the game, it lit a fire inside the Fever. For the first time in weeks, Caitlin wasn't playing defense against her own league. She had backup, and she thrived because of it. What McAfee revealed, what most people missed, is that this wasn't just about one foul. It was about shifting the culture. For months, players had been able to cheap shot Clark without fear of consequence.
I don't like these cheap shots, though. She got dodged in the eye. Cheap shots can't be happening, and it always happens. No. Caitlin is certainly going to be a storyline. She's a star. She's a dog. And the WNBA seemingly on the rise. I'm happy she's got Sophie on the team.
Yep.
She needed that.
Now, there's a consequence. Her name is Sophie, and whether the league likes it or not, she's made herself unmissable. Because when you come for Caitlin Clark now, you better know who's standing in the gap. Sophie Cunningham didn't ask to be the enforcer, but when the league turned its back and Caitlin Clark was left unprotected, she became exactly what the Fever and the game needed.
Here's Sophie Cunningham, the badass for the Indiana Fever, who is willing to fight.
Sure.
Which we are big fans of for Caitlin Clark.
Caitlin Clark taking exception to that, and then Marina Mabry of the Connecticut Sun coming over and pushing her from behind.
How much of that was Cheryl Reeve, who was acerbic all last season?
Sophie Cunningham comes down and tackles the girl. It's like, hey, I'm protecting my star. And my take was, this is the process. We're going to let you know at the end of the game.
She's the one.
Yeah.
She is everything. She'll get after the refs afterwards. She said, I'm here to talk about basketball. I mean, she's a needle mover, and she's got an enforcer on the team now, and a black belt having Sophie Cunningham.
And thanks to Pat McAfee, the world now sees the truth. This wasn't chaos, it was courage. While others played politics, Sophie played defense for her teammate, for respect, and for the message that needed to be heard loud and clear.
The WNBA tried to get Christine Brennan banned. And I mean this when I say this. Like, whatever your opinion on Christine Brennan is, it is not a positive thing if you are trying to get rid of probably the most impactful women's sports reporter in the history of women's sports.
The bullying stops here. The league can fine her. Critics can sue her, but fans, they've already chosen their side.
Like, there's not one reporter who has, even if you don't like Christine Brennan, even if you don't like some of the things, they cannot come for Christine Brennan. Like, it is a bad look. It is a bad look. It's like going for freaking, if you're a critic, it's like, imagine if, I don't know, Bill Russell said something, rest in peace, Bill Russell. But imagine hypothetically if Bill Russell was alive and Bill Russell said something positive about Caitlin Clark and they went for Bill Russell. Who had them, like obviously Bill Russell maybe had more impact in the sport of basketball than anyone else ever. Other than maybe Michael Jordan. But Christine Brennan is the GOAT of women's sports reporting.
Sophie didn't just protect Caitlin Clark, she changed the energy of the entire league. And now there's no turning back.
Look at Sophie. She's waiting for it. She's waiting for it, fam. And then I see why Allen got kicked out. Allen went for the throat. Allen went for Sophie's throat. Literally have her hand on her neck right there. Oh my goodness. But she's focused on Sheldon. So she reaches for Sheldon, grabs the back of her head. Is Sophie handling both of them? Oh my goodness. It looked like Sophie might have one hand on Allen, the other hand holding on to Sheldon's hair or the back of her head. Oh my goodness.
There wasn't an explanation for the tech that she got. You know, I think it was pretty obvious that stuff was brewing, right? When the officials don't get control of the ball game, when they allow that stuff to happen, and it's been happening all season long. All season long. It's not just this game. It's been happening all season long. This is what happens, right? This is what happens. You've got competitive women who are the best in the world at what they do, right? And when you allow them to play physical and you allow these things to happen, they're going to compete. And they're going to have their teammates' backs. It's exactly what you expect, right? Out of fierce competition.